Today I'm talking about and ranking every single one of Imogen Poots' movies. This does also include a number of TV movies and at least one TV miniseries that I just decided to count as a movie. It's terrible though, so no one's gonna put up a fuss about that one. This is as of 2024. I will say she did have 2 movies premiere in 2024, but they didn't actually get wide release, so those aren't on there. One final caveat is I have been slowly watching her filmography since 2020, and my filming style has changed over the course of that time. So some of these reviews are gonna look a little weird and sound a little different, so be prepared for that. Filth. This is a 2013 film starring James McAvoy, and I fucking hate this movie. It is so bad. So the basic premise is this incredibly racist, misogynistic, just general asshole of a cop is really depressed. So he uses his depression as fuel to just do terrible things to literally everyone the entire movie. And it's not good. Like, it's a tricky thing to have your main character be an unlikable person, and they didn't do a good job with it, because literally all they have him do is just be an asshole to everyone all the time. That's his entire character, and like, that's not fun to watch, that's not interesting to watch, that's just bad and dumb and terrible. It did get a little interesting at the end because they revealed a little bit more, but I don't think that was handled well. This is based off a book, and I think the writer of the book is trying his damnedest to be Chuck Palahniuk. In particular, this reminded me a lot of Choke, especially because the main character of this is a sex addict, which if you're unfamiliar with Choke, which you should read, is about a sex addict, and is actually good from what I recall. I haven't read it since high school, but I think it's still good. It's probably better than this noise. What I find interesting though is its IMDb rating. IMDb ratings, if you're unfamiliar, are trash. Don't use them as a metric for the quality of goodness, because if it has like a rating below 5, that usually means that a non-white person is the lead, or a woman is the lead, or has something to do with feminism or racism. Generally though, most movies are between like 5 and 7-ish. If it does hit 7, that is interesting and means that it's either resonating with people or it doesn't have anything for misogynists or racists to hate on. And since this movie features a huge misogynistic racist, that means that people really resonated with this film. Why? Because even though he's a terrible person, they probably see something in him in themselves. So that's fun. Would I recommend this movie? No, it's terrible. This is such trash. Waking Madison. This movie is something. So I don't know how to describe this movie in which the movie wants you to think what it is, because there's a lot of twists in here, but they're really obvious and you need to know what they are in order to even understand what's happening. So okay, it starts off with this woman who is deciding to lock herself in her apartment for 30 days because she needs to figure out herself, her life, how to live life. And if she doesn't do that within the 30 days, then she's gonna kill herself. So that's the setup. But then what we proceed to see is this mental institution with a bunch of other women with all of these silly personalities. And it's like, it's so incredibly disconnected from the other thing that unless you figure out what the twist is, it makes absolutely no sense. And so I'm just gonna spoil the twist because you need to know it. Even if I don't say it, you would figure it out. But all of the characters in the mental institution are her. They're specifically different personalities of her, which is very incredibly obvious. But also the movie doesn't want you to realize that right away, because a big moment within the film is when the main character realizes that, oh, there are multiple minds in my mind. Crazy. Okay, putting all of that stuff aside, what else is in this movie? Well, I mean, it's very disjointed, for sure, and a number of the actors are not good. The main woman was okay at times, but also not great. Elizabeth Shue was fine, definitely fine. Imogen Poots is in this, and she is doing a funny voice. It's an American funny voice, and it kind of works. She's not bad. It's definitely strange, but it was also kind of endearing. I am biased because I've seen essentially all of her movies, so I'm inclined to like her doing kind of anything. But yeah, no, the worst one is like the thug character. And like, I think she's doing what the director wanted her to do, but it was the wrong choice. It's such a bad choice. Oh my God, stop, just stop. ugh. So like, I really didn't give a shit about the one character or what happened to her. And it was just really poorly made and poorly executed and poorly acted. And just all in all, a really bad, terrible experience. I sometimes forget that like, when I watch a really good movie, it gives me a high, like a legit high that I'm like kind of floating a little bit afterwards. If I'm just like, I'm jazzed about life and the experience I just had and I can't wait to tell other people about it. But then I forget about the inverse, that when I watch a really bad movie, about how it makes me feel bad about myself and just puts me into like a mini depression for a couple of hours. And this was definitely one of those experiences. I thought about shutting it off, but I was like, no, I need to give it the college try for Imogen, because I've watched all of her films and I need to not make an exception with this one. And I mean, I don't regret that, but also, man, was I bummed out for a while after this film. So yeah, no, hated this movie, do not recommend it. I unfortunately now own it because it wasn't streaming anywhere and I couldn't find it on the high seas, but it was available on eBay of all places. So yeah. Honestly, I kind of wouldn't mind tossing this into a fire, but yeah. Bouquet of Barbed Wire. This is technically a TV miniseries, but it's 3 parts and each of the parts are 45 minutes. That means it's just over 2 hours. So it's just a TV movie that was split up into 3 parts. Also, it's not good. So I feel like no one's really gonna fight me on this. Man, this movie, it's so strange. The basic premise is there's this young woman who falls for one of her teachers and starts a relationship with him, and there's lots of conflict between the boyfriend and the dad. This movie has so much filler. It has so much filler because there must have been like some sort of mandate that like it needs to be 3 parts, and it's like there's so much stuff in here that doesn't matter, doesn't go anywhere. Also just unbelievable. I didn't care for the main actor, the dad. First off, I just didn't find him believable as like this guy who like so easily persuaded people to have sex with him. I'm not like necessarily criticizing his looks. It's more so like there's no charm to him. I don't see a suaveness to him. He doesn't excrete sex appeal, so he's got to have something else going for him. And like, he's just not that interesting of a guy. The boyfriend character though, he's the one that is the most ridiculous because he is legitimately a mustache twirling villain. He is without a doubt Snidely Whiplash. And like, his whole thing doesn't make any sense because like, there's one scene where like he's flirty with Imogen's character in a classroom and she like looks at his dick. And then the next scene, they're having sex and they're kind of like, it's good vibes. And then from there on out, he is just the most conniving, evil, manipulative person. Like, he just exists to be a dick to everyone, and for some reason Imogen's character just can't see it. She just can't look past it. But it's like, no, he has no redeeming qualities. I get it that she's supposed to be like young and naive, but it's like, no, you're just making her stupid. Like, this is cartoonishly evil. No one would be brought in by this. And then like really close to the end of the movie, after everything's been revealed, then he like has a huge character change. It does not work, and yeah, no, it's just terrible. This movie's just really horny too. It makes no sense. Like, every other scene has someone being horny and characters just kind of do stuff. There's legit one point where the villain's like, I f***ed your mom on the couch last night, and it's hilarious, but like, it's supposed to be an emotionally devastating scene. And I'd be hard pressed to find someone who could write the line, I f***ed your mom, and have that actually play as drama and rather than just like comedy. As you know, it's something all 13-year-olds have said while gaming online. So yeah, no, it's not good. Imogen was good in this. She's consistently good, but that wasn't enough to save this movie / TV show. I think had they spent like 45 minutes or maybe an hour at max, then it would have been interesting. Because like, at the very heart of it, I do find the mystery of why is this guy a dick interesting. Is it logical? Does it track? No. But it was interesting. I was tempted to shut it off, but I'm just like, I want to know what happens. So I didn't shut it off, and yeah. So yes, no, I did not care for this movie, and I would not recommend it. Jane Eyre. This is a 2011 adaptation of the, fancy novel starring, I'm gonna mess up her name. I'm just gonna go for it, Mia Wazowska. And then my second Michael Fassbender movie, I do not know what I was expecting because I did not enjoy any aspect of this movie. Even though it got great reviews, people really like it. Apparently it's one of the better adaptations of Jane Eyre. I did not want to watch this movie. I mean, it's just a bunch of rich white old English people being like, oh, woe is me. I love this person, but I can't love this person. Oh wait, I still love this person. Also, I do know that Jane Eyre doesn't actually get rich until near the end of the movie, but she's still a rich white lady this entire movie. I can enjoy movies that aren't targeted at me, because this definitely is not targeted at me. Like, I enjoyed Little Women. I enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. I did not enjoy this movie. I did like, in the beginning, she went to like, I don't know if it was a Catholic, but there's like a Christian school. She was like sent off to one, they're really strict and stuff. And there was like a little girl who was like the only one who'd be her friend. And then I was like, oh, is this gonna be like a lesbian love story? Because I would be all about that. And then the little girl dies and I'm like, oh, all right, well, I guess she can go be with Michael Fassbender. It's fine, it's whatever. Just, you know, white people do white people stuff. Yeah, no, I didn't like this movie, if you couldn't tell. I almost forgot to talk about Imogen Poots. Yeah, no, she's barely in this movie, like maybe 2 minutes at most. She basically plays Michael Fassbender's former love interest, kind of make, you know, like a love triangle thing, and it's worthless. She is really pretty in it because, you know, she's Imogen Poots. But yeah, no, I shouldn't have watched this one. Mistakes were made. Oh well. Cracks. This is a 2009 British movie starring Eva Green, Juno Temple, Maria Balduri. I don't know if she's Spanish. And then Imogen, of course, though she's kind of more of a bit player in this movie. And the basic premise is it is set in an all-girls boarding school, I think in 1920s England. And it's about this group of teenage girls trying to live their lives. Eva Green plays the cool, hip teacher who lets them get away with stuff and whatnot. And then Juno plays like the head girl of this band of people, and she's just kind of a bully. And then Maria is this Spanish princess who comes in, and of course everyone has to hate her because she's beautiful and whatever. Imogen just plays one of the other kids. She was 19, so she pulls it off. This movie was not good. It was trying to be Dead Poets Society, but like none of the stuff the teacher said is inspirational or cool. It's just kind of like dumb and airheaded. And also she's just kind of a terrible person in general. But also everyone in this movie is kind of a terrible person. Juno is just a bully the entire movie. Like there's one scene where she's kind of sympathetic, but then she just does so much mean shit that it's just like, I hate you as a person, stop doing everything you're doing. And then Maria, the Spanish princess, you're like, oh, I'm gonna feel sympathy for her because she's getting bullied and she's in a new place, so like you're gonna feel bad for her and whatnot. No, you don't, because she constantly has this I'm too good for this shit attitude the entire movie. It does not go away. That is her whole character, is I'm too good for this shit. A lot of the stuff about this movie really doesn't work. I do think like the base idea isn't bad, and I do think there are decent performances in this movie. Like I could definitely buy Imogen as the second in command bully type of thing. And there were some really, really pretty shots in this movie as well, particularly the night swimming scene. That one was gorgeous. I didn't end up putting this one in the didn't like category though, just because it's hard for me to not like a film that Imogen is in, but it's like, it's right on that line. It's so close. So yeah, so I don't recommend this film. It's not good. Comes a Bright Day. This is a 2012 film, and the basic premise is there is this maybe 20-year-old guy who wants to be an entrepreneur, so he's doing his best to hustle, and he gets sent on an errand to go to this jewelry place, but wouldn't you know it, they get robbed. And it's okay. It really just is a very run-of-the-mill, generic hostage movie. They really hit all of the beats that you expect. And like, I did find the characters kind of interesting at times, but it wasn't good writing. Like the villains were stupid. Like they were more stupid than the intended extent of their stupidity. It was just poor writing. Like for instance, I'm gonna spoil the beginning of the robbery. So like the shop has one of the buzzers to let customers in, and the guys come in fully with the masks on and guns ablazing. So like the shop owner would have seen that shit either through the glass door or in the security camera that should be right there, because they have a buzzer to let people in, and usually that entails also having a security camera because you want that extra layer of security because there's over $1 million worth of product in this place. But let's just say he wasn't paying attention. Sure, okay, it's fine, I guess. So they come in and the bad guys just immediately start pointing the guns right at their faces and just start yelling. They don't grab anything, they're just yelling. And everything just gets escalated, like everyone doesn't care that there's guns in their faces, they're just gonna be loud. And eventually it explodes into one of the bad guys killing an old lady. Okay, so then they decide to run out of the store, not having grabbed anything. They just leave the store having just come in and murdered a lady. Well then, they shoot a bunch of cops and then come back into the store. Remember, it's locked. So who knows how they got back inside. And then from there, they decide to not immediately tie up everyone. There's a good like 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour before they do eventually decide to tie up their hostages. But in the meantime, they leave the room several times to like go have conversations. Like both of the bad guys go to a different room and leave all of their untied hostages in a room to just do whatever they want. And they legit just kind of walk around, meander, talk, whatever. They don't try to escape until much later in the film. But then even like when the guys are in the room pointing guns at them, everyone will just yell at the robbers. Like they're not threatening to kill them, even though they just proved to us that they will randomly kill people willy-nilly. So everyone's just being dumb because they should be acting afraid instead of yelling, because the bad guys are intimidated, but they don't because reasons. Okay, I'm complaining a lot, but I didn't put this movie in the didn't like section. I ended up putting it in the meh section, and that's because there were moments that I liked. Imogen does a really good job, and I did find the main character kind of interesting. He's definitely a bit of a twat, but it's fine. There were bits I found interesting. So yeah, I didn't dislike it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty forgettable and nothing to write home about. Need for Speed is a 2014 movie starring Aaron Paul as well as Imogen Poots, obviously, and then a surprising number of other like good actors as well. I desperately wanted to see this movie and I refused to pay any money for it because I knew it wasn't going to be good, and surprise, surprise, it wasn't good. But not for the reasons that I was expecting. So just like looking at this poster and knowing what Need for Speed the video game is, I like assumed like everyone else that this was just gonna be a Fast and the Furious knockoff, but it's not. They, instead of being ridiculous and fun and over the top, they went the complete opposite direction and were like, we're really, really serious. I know this is a movie about street racing, but this is serious, guys. And it's like, stop, no. This movie, you need to have fun. Like halfway through the movie, I legit thought to myself, even though by that point we've had like 4 race scenes, this movie is just not fun. There is no fun to be had. And I'm like, it's a racing movie. There should be fun. How do you mess this up? They do try to like sprinkle in a little bit of fun, but it's like that it wasn't a good kind of fun. Like one character decides to quit his job, so he just gets completely naked and starts walking around and then sexually assaults a woman. And I'm like, no, stop. Stop. Why are you doing this? Ugh. That movie's bad. It takes itself way too seriously. But Imogen, she did a great job. Every single scene she was in, she elevated it. I also really appreciated that all of the car scenes were done practically. They used very, very minimal computer effects, so that's, you know, nice, especially compared to what Fast and the Furious has changed into. But even with that, they didn't do a great job of actually editing those action scenes. I didn't really feel the urgency at all, and I couldn't really tell what car was in what position or who was in what car, except for the last race. That one was more clear. So yeah, that movie was definitely bad. I didn't hate it though, because it's hard to hate something with Imogen Poots, except for Jane Eyre. I really did not care for Jane Eyre. I was not the target audience for that movie. I acknowledge that in my review of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was not meant for me. That Awkward Moment. This is a 2014 movie starring Zac Efron, Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Mackenzie Davis, Jessica Lucas, and the whole reason I watched it, Miss Imogen Poots, who is a delight as always. This movie was real interesting. So, the basic premise is Michael B. Jordan recently discovered that his wife, Jessica Lucas, has been cheating on him. So they're getting divorced, but he doesn't really want to get divorced. He wants to stay with her. So his friends make a pact that they will stay single until he gets a new girlfriend. I don't really know why. It doesn't really make any sense. I also don't understand the title of this movie. I think it's in reference to that awkward moment when you've been banging this chick for a while and then she's like, so where's this relationship going? And you don't want to date her because you're cool like that. And so it's really awkward that she wants to officially date you and you don't. It's fucking dumb. This movie is kind of a giant mess. The plot is super incredibly muddled. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and honestly it feels like they cut a lot of plot related stuff to keep down the runtime, which definitely hurt the film a good solid amount. Like the introduction of Mackenzie Davis's character, three main guys at a bar, and the wide shot is just wider and she's there and we're supposed to accept that she's just a part of this thing with no explanation whatsoever, and after a few minutes she starts talking and it's like, well, why? How do you know these people? What is going on? This makes no sense why you're just a part of this group. I still don't get it. And other stuff like that. Like at one point, one of the guys making fun of one of the other ones and is like, oh, I knew you'd be the first one to lose this bet. And I'm like, what bet? You didn't make a bet, you made a pact to not get girlfriend, which also is just a really dumb pact. Like, you're clearly dating people all throughout this movie, and like, I guess their argument is, oh, we're just banging, but like, they're dating in secret. But like, you're not dating in secret. It's very clear to all the other people involved that you're dating. And it's like their obsession with not getting girlfriends, even though they very clearly have girlfriends, is dumb and doesn't make any sense. And then on top of all that, this movie is filled to the brim with so many dick and poop jokes that have absolutely no place in this film. Like, this would be great dialogue for like a 13-year-old, but these guys are supposed to be in like their mid to late 20s. This dialogue makes absolutely no sense here. And then like the two main guys, Miles Teller and Zac Efron, are just such douchebags. Whenever they're like trying to pick up chicks, it's like, have you ever actually talked to a woman before? Cause this is just no. And then like they're constantly talking about like, oh, we're constantly banging all of these chicks. And I'm just like, you're such a D-bag. Like, these are not good characters. I hate them. Okay, so I didn't put this movie in the didn't like category, and that's because the chemistry in it is actually fantastic. The chemistry between the three bros is great. They definitely feel like real friends, and I felt like the actors were like really vibing. And then like the chemistry between all three of the couples was great. I crazy loved Zac Efron and Imogen Poots together. They were a delight. Mackenzie Davis and Miles Teller were awesome. They bounced off each other great. Michael B. Jordan and Jessica Lucas aren't really in this movie that much, but they're fine. They work. It's passable. So like, this movie was still enjoyable, even though I really didn't like a lot of stuff about it. Especially because like at one point it's just like Zac Efron kind of has the realization, what? Girls can like video games too? That's crazy. Girls like drinking? What? I was like, dude, just, you're dumb. This is dumb. This is so dumb. Fun fact, this is written and directed by the same guy who directed The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, a much, much better film. So yeah, this movie was frustrating. I feel like if I were to read the script, I would like this a lot more. I would hope so at the very least. They could tell there's some good shit here. It's just bogged down by so much garbage. So yeah, I don't recommend this movie. It's... Mobile Homes. This is a 2018 Canadian movie. The basic premise is it's about this young woman who has this very old child. She, got pregnant young, and she wants to get rid of this kid so she can, live her kind of carefree, slightly illegal life with her boyfriend. And because she has the kid, she has problems. The movie's also about just toxic, abusive relationships and people's ability to change. I really liked the basic story, just like the fundamentals of what the story is. I thought that there were lots of good ideas there. I also thought all of the adult performances were great. The main kid in the movie, he was okay. The more so issue with him is that he needed to do a lot of heavy lifting. He needed to be more of a central focus to the movie for it to really work better. But because the kid was only an okay of an actor, they couldn't put that much weight on him. The movie reminded me a lot of both Room with Brie Larson and Leave No Trace. It has, you know, that adult-child dynamic thing. But in both of those movies, the child actor was really, really good. And they were, you know, able to hold their own against the adults. And this movie just, it didn't have that, and it suffered because of that. I'm not downing on the kid. He did fine. It's just, to get where this movie needed, he needed to be a much more talented actor than he is, which, you know, there are very, very few child actors that could hit that performance. I also think something that might have helped is just, it's a rather slow movie, which I don't mind, but I think maybe just like doing a little bit faster pace could have helped it a bit. Also, something that came to mind like halfway through the movie, it was just like the intensity of the movie is just nowhere near as high as it should be. It should be right at that 10, but really at its very peak, it's at a 6 at best. And it needs more. It just needs that more intensity of the situation. Because like the boyfriend is really abusive and he does awful toxic things. You just don't feel it that much because it's just the intensity is just not there. So yeah, the movie's okay. Again, the performances are good. The basic story is good. It just needed a bit more intensity, basically. Greetings from Tim Buckley. The basic premise is Tim Buckley has died, and so his son that he's met like 2 times in his life is gonna play at his memorial service. That's about it. That's the whole story. This was a hard watch. There are flashbacks to Tim Buckley as a young man, roughly the same age as his son is at the time of his funeral. And I like that stuff a lot. That was really interesting. It kind of goes away after a while, and that's annoying because that was good. What's so interesting too is that like the father and son are assholes. They're terrible people. Like the father is cheating on his pregnant girlfriend, wife, person all the time. But like I am in a sense more okay with it because like I give a shit more about his character. He's more charming. He's more understanding. Whereas like the main character, Jeff, the son, he is just like, he feels so entitled. He feels like a little weird asshole. He is so strange. Like he goes on a date with Imogen's character to this record store and they're looking at records and he's just being an asshole the entire time. And then eventually he just picks up a record and then he starts just making sounds. He's technically like sing-songing the vibe of the record using not words. It's very reminiscent of that famous video of Yoko Ono just making the weirdest sounds while John Lennon is trying to play with Chuck Berry. On the south side, high up on the ridge, just a half a mile from the Mississippi. Like that's what he was doing for like 2 minutes, and it's maybe supposed to be charming, but all it did was just make me hate this guy. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop being so weird. This is strange. This is not a vibe. And like Imogen's good in this. She definitely is charming and it almost make me like enjoy myself at times while I was with this terrible character. But then he would just do something and say something that was really dumb. And he's sad that the dad's dead, even though the dad was never in his life. And like he inherited all of his talent from his dad. And also being related to his dad definitely helped his career. So like, I don't know. And he's just like right out of the gate starts hitting on women and I'm like, no, just stop. But it's supposed to be charming maybe? I don't know. And then also there's just like a lot of jam sessions and like the last third of the movie is just like the concert and it's like I don't give a about this. This isn't a story, this is just a concert. This wasn't a didn't like though because besides the main character I enjoyed everyone else, especially Imogen. She's always great and this is no exception. But man, yeah, no, it was a bit of a struggle bus to get through. I definitely think it would help if you're a fan of either Tim or Jeff Buckley, because you'll definitely enjoy the jam sessions more than I did. But just, yeah, no, the music was not my vibe, and I really did not care for the main character. So yes, this wasn't really my movie, and I would not recommend it unless you're a big fan of either Jeff or Tim. French Exit. This is a Canadian movie, that surprised me, that stars Michelle Pfeiffer. I've wanted to watch this movie because of Miss Poots. She's just great. I love her so much. The basic premise is it's about this woman who's, let's just say 60, and her adult son, and she's just like, you know, latched on to him, and she won't let him live his own life and stuff. But now she's like, she was a rich old lady, but now she's like lost all of her money, so now she kind of wants to go kill herself. So they decide to go to France for reasons. The movie was alright. I really did not care for Michelle Pfeiffer's character. I found her really annoying. I really didn't understand her motivations or really just anything with her. The son was fine. I got him. The part where the movie like really came alive for me is when they go to France and they have this apartment that they're borrowing from a friend, and slowly they get a myriad of characters to move in with them. And it's just like this, it's a ridiculous group of strangers that are all just suddenly living together. That's really funny and fun and interesting. But that doesn't happen until a good ways into the movie, and they don't really focus on it a whole ton. Supposedly this movie is a comedy, but I really didn't laugh. I also really, really love, this is a spoiler, that there is a woman who can talk to the dead, and they actually do talk to a dead person, and everyone just immediately accepts it as a true fact of life, and it's great. And I just also love the way that they did it, and it worked really, really well. So I don't know, I think like had the movie kind of been like the last third of it but stretched out over the course of an entire movie, it would have been great. But because it's not, it's only okay. I still liked it, but I don't really recommend it. Solitary Man. This is a 2009 film starring Michael Douglas and featuring Imogen Poots. The basic premise is Michael Douglas finds out that he maybe has something wrong with his heart, and instead of doing further testing, he decides to say F it and then just throw away his marriage and do whatever the hell he wants. So he's constantly just like trying to bang beautiful young women, which we only see him successfully do, I guess technically twice. But one of the times, he didn't do any of the initiating. It was definitely from a her thing. And the other one was kind of weird, because it started off as a lie, but then it wasn't a lie. I don't know, whatever. I ended up putting this movie in the liked category, and I think that's fairly generous, because Michael Douglas's character is just awful, and I don't really get what the writer of this was going for, because it sort of feels like a morality tale, sort of, but like, I don't know. He's a piece of shit. I really loved Imogen's performance. She does great. I think this is her first film where she truly got to do something. This is also where she met Jesse Eisenberg, who plays such a meek little character, but he gives a really good performance. I really liked his character. Oh, Olivia Thirlby is also in this. I liked her a lot. Gillian Jacobs is also in this. The casting director nailed it for all these young actors, I do have to say. And it's an interesting-ish story. I just wish the main character, A, wasn't such a piece of shit, so I could sympathize with him even just a little bit. And then B, we just get told how much he like suave sexiness that he has, but we don't really see it. And like, if they were going for like he's all talk and no game, they didn't do it quite right. And if they're going for the other way where he actually is suave and sexy and stuff, they still didn't do it right. It just didn't quite work, and it's weird. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this movie. I did like it, and again, the liking is a very generous ranking. Centurion. This is a 2010 British movie starring Michael Fassbender. It also features one of my all-time loves, Imogen Poots. Isn't her nose great? I love her nose. Anyway, the basic premise is this is kind of inspired by real life events, where back when Rome was trying to conquer England, there is this regiment of soldiers who get sent off into this one section of England, and in real life, they never returned. So this is just kind of filling in the blanks of what maybe happened to them. And it's all right. It's trying so damn hard to be cool. Like, it just really wants to be 300, but it is not pulling it off. Like, it's okay. The action's fine, but like, it's definitely punching above its weight class. The story's fine. The acting's fine. Imogen doesn't come in until late in the movie, but when she does come in, she's another main character, and she looks gorgeous in this. I love her long curly hair in this. And she does mostly good. Though her first scene, she didn't have an accent, but then the whole rest of the film, she had an accent. So that was a little weird. Anyway, I really wouldn't recommend it unless unless you're just like really itching for like some more Michael Fassbender. I don't know. It's fine. It's all right. This really isn't a movie it's worth like going out of your way to watch. So, yeah. Killed Giants. It's a kind of a lonely kid who's kind of dealing with some past trauma stuff. This poster kind of makes it look a bit more fantastical than it really is. There are some fantastical bits, but having Harry Potter on here kind of makes it, kind of deceives you a little bit. It's not that fantastical. It's not like a big fantasy adventure. I thought it was okay. My big issue with this movie is basically that the main character, her, she is super unlikable. Like, there's so many caring people in her life, and they're trying to help her every chance they get, but she just bites their heads off left and right, and it's just the meanest person to everyone when they're just trying to help. And like, that's very realistic, but it's not an enjoyable experience to watch for 2 hours. I will say though that the best friend is incredible, and I love her so much. And then Zoe Saldana is also in this, and she does really good. And then Imogen Poots is also great in it. I still put in the liked category because I did like it. Really, if like they made the movie that poster looks like, I would have loved it. Or if they would have made the movie with the main character being likable, I would have loved it. But they didn't do either of those things, so I just liked it. A Country Called Home. The premise is Imogen plays this young woman who has a very poor relationship with her father. She hasn't seen or talked to him in years, but maybe his health's not doing good. So she goes back to her hometown in Texas and has just hometown adventures. And it's fine. There's definitely bits and pieces that I like about it. Even though I don't like the character of her like sort of stepmom is interesting, and I've definitely known people like that. I also like Mackenzie Davis's character. She plays a trans man in this, and I like what they're going for with it, but I don't think they did enough with them, just because like they're like just a friend and nothing really happens with them. And then like I sort of expected there to be like a little bit of a romance between them, but there wasn't. There was a little bit of a romance with someone else, and I'm like, I don't know, like that. So I don't know, it was a pleasant enough experience to didn't like ever have the urge to shut it off, but at the same time I don't think it really did a whole lot with the subject matter to really like warrant any kind of recommendation. So I don't know, it was fine. It had a cute ending. Would I recommend it? Again, it's not a bad time. It's just like, doesn't really do anything that exciting with the genre, so Castle in the Ground. This movie actually came out last year. For some reason I had it in my head it came out in 2014. I don't know why. This one stars Alex Wolff and then the much loved Imogen Poots. And the basic premise is Alex is going through some hard times because his mom is dying, and then he decides to get into really hard drugs. And luckily for him, his neighbor across the hallway is Imogen, who really likes drugs. The movie was okay. It felt very made for TV movie, like after school special-y type of thing. It wasn't like a bad premise, it's just they didn't really do a whole lot with it and didn't seem that different from other drug stories. Imogen was definitely the big standout here. She nailed the part, she was incredibly believable, and just her entire performance made this movie in the liked category. If it wouldn't have been for her, this easily would have been a meh, if not a didn't liked. But because she is so incredibly talented, it's hard to not like any movie that she's in. So yeah. The big issue with this movie is just it goes nowhere slowly. I think the point of it is they wanted you to kind of just sit with a lot of his pain, but like I didn't really feel his pain, so sitting in it made it just feel like we're sitting doing nothing. I don't know, it didn't really work that well. I don't recommend this movie unless you're like me and you really love Imogen Poots or you like Alex Wolff. I definitely don't regret watching this movie, but I'm definitely not gonna watch it again. She's Funny That Way. This is a 2015 ensemble film. It's one of those comedies where there's like a half a dozen characters and they're all interconnected in some way, and then situations where like they all just happen to go to the same place at the same time and then shenanigans ensue. But the premise is Imogen plays this young woman who used to be a prostitute, and in the future she's become this like known actor, and she's like doing this interview thing where she's talking about her career and how she got discovered, and it's because of this one own director. He gave her $30,000 to stop being a prostitute. And then shenanigans ensue. And it's fine. I do have a number of issues with the film. Firstly, I hate anytime there's a story where like, I'm this guy who's so good at sex, even prostitutes tell me I'm good at sex, and they mean it. No, that's dumb. But I honestly did enjoy this film. There were lots of fun moments, even though Owen Wilson's character is pretty slimy. He gets a lot of comeuppance, and that's fun. What's his name from House of Dragon and Little Nicky? That guy is in this too, and he's clearly just having a ball the entire time. My least favorite character slash story is Jennifer Aniston. She does okay. She's not the most talented actor. But my issue more so is that her story is she is a therapist who recently was dumped in a very dramatic way, so now she's giving out really bad advice to people. And I think that premise is fine. It's okay. But the things that she says are things that therapists would never say even on their worst day. And I would know this because my dad is a therapist. No, just no. Another issue too is I feel like there's just a lot of stuff missing. Like there's just like some connective tissue things, especially like for some reason everyone just shows up together at the end of the movie and I'm like, why? Most of these people have no reason to be here. After I watched the movie and after I felt this way, I discovered there's actually a director's cut. It's not widely available. It was like discovered after the director passed away. It was only shown like at exhibitions, but I read a really long review about it. And I think it fixed a lot of issues that I have with the film and it really fills it in. So I do think had I been able to watch the director's version of this that I would have liked it more, but unfortunately that's just not an option, so it didn't happen. Would I recommend it? It's fine. I would say if you're like a big fan of like ensemble pieces like Valentine's Day or Love Actually or What to Expect When You're Expecting, like those big ensemble things, all coincidental interacting stuff, like yeah, sure, it's fine. It fits pretty well into that genre. So if that's your favorite genre, like yeah, sure, go for it. But if you're not super into that, then nah, it's okay to miss this one. It's nothing to write home about. Christopher and His Kind. This is a 2011 film starring Matt Smith, and the basic premise is it's inspired by a memoir from the 70s about an Englishman's life in Germany during the rise of the Third Reich, his sexcapades as a gay man. And like, it's strange, because like, what it really feels like to me, like tonally, aesthetics, budget-wise, it's like someone wrote a gay Doctor Who fanfic and then someone just gave them a budget to turn it into a TV movie. Because like it really just feels like an episode of Doctor Who. Matt Smith's not doing that dissimilar of stuff from what he did during his time on Doctor Who. This was filmed between his first and second season. I mean, he looks the same, he sounds the same, he's way more flamboyant, but it's not like his version of the Doctor wasn't flamboyant. Obviously this is more graphic, though I do love the bonus trivia on IMDb that was like, BBC requested that they don't show Matt Smith naked because they spent a lot of money curtailing his image. So the director's like, yeah, I just couldn't show the dude's butt. That's fun. And you don't see his butt. You do see some penises though. It's also very gay, which I obviously have no problems with, but like it almost feels like how a straight person would portray gay people and not how gay people would portray gay people. And I tried to look into like the director's sexual orientation, but like that didn't really come up with anything. So could this assessment be completely wrong? Totally. But to me, it just felt very over the top. It's just so horny, and like the tone of it was just so weird, because it's like, hey, Nazis are coming to power and a lot of people are about to die, but let's have some fun gay sex. I did like it. I did put it in the liked category. I thought it was middle of the road, but it had issues with tone. I think had they kind of gave it more of a somber approach and then like occasionally would go out into like fun, silly sex stuff, that would have been a better approach. Would I recommend it? Cautiously. It's interesting. I think if you're intrigued by it, I would say go for it, but just be prepared for an interesting experience. It's definitely not bad. It's just like the script needed some fine tuning. So yeah. A Long Way Down. This is a 2014 British movie starring Pierce Brosnan, Toni Collette, Imogen Poots, and Aaron Paul. And the basic premise is it's New Year's Eve and Pierce Brosnan wants to kill himself by jumping off this very tall building. And before he gets a chance to, he runs into 3 other people who also want to do the exact same thing. And then the quad end up befriending each other and making a pact to not kill themselves. So really it's a lighthearted movie about suicide. So I can understand why it did not get good reviews, because that's a very tricky line to walk. I definitely went into this movie with low expectations, but I was surprised by it. They had a lot of good chemistry between all four of the leads. I definitely liked Imogen the best. I'm biased, obviously, and I will also say that she had a very Marla Singer vibe to her, both in looks and aesthetic and character. Pierce Brosnan was good and solid. He did a good job of carrying this movie. Toni Collette is amazing as always. Even though she does have like the most cliched written character, she also has a child with a disability that you really don't see in movies or TV shows. So that was kind of a refreshing perspective. I definitely think Aaron Paul was the weakest link of the group, basically because he was essentially doing Jesse from Breaking Bad light. So that was kind of lame. I do think this is a flawed movie, and I don't think they perfectly balanced the lightheartedness with the dark subject matter of suicide. But I do think it's an interesting story. It's not a film to just be dismissed out of hand. I don't know if I would recommend it necessarily, just because it is a weird mixture of lighthearted and dark. But I would say if you're intrigued by it and if you think you could handle it, go for it. You know, don't go in with the highest expectations, but I really don't think it's a bad movie, and I really don't think it's as bad as the reviews make it out to be. Sweet Virginia. This is a 2017 movie starring John Bernthal and then Christopher Abbott and then Odessa Young. She has a very small part in this, but she still does really solid. Basic premise of this is they're in a small Alaskan town, and then some murders happen, and it's just kind of like the fallout of all murders and stuff. And it was pretty solid. I definitely put it as like a middle of the road movie. I liked it. Nothing like super jumped out at me about it, but it was solid performances. John Bernthal was basically like a soft version of the Punisher. Like, he still has like his massive presence. Like, you see him shirtless at one point, it's like he's a big man. But then like he's trying to like stop a fight, and he's like, hey, could you guys stop that? And then like they push him, and he's like, all right, well, I guess you guys take care. I'll be good. Okay, good talking. And so it's just like he's such a pushover on stuff. And it's so weird to see the Punisher as a pushover. But he gives a great, really emotional performance near the end, like one really, really great scene with him and Odessa Young that was quite powerful. The real standout of this one is definitely Abbott. He just plays this really strange character who goes kind of more and more off the hinge as it goes on, and he's very unsettling, and he's great. And then Miss Poots, though she's like central to the plot, she doesn't really do a whole lot in the movie, but she again had a really great emotional scene near the end. That's kind of the only one of note. Otherwise, she's just kind of there, just existing for plot purposes. So yeah, I'd only recommend this movie if like you think the sound is interesting or you like all of those actors. It definitely has some other actors in it too that are notable. I just didn't want to list everyone. So yeah, that's fine. It's good. Nice middle of the road movie. Knight of Cups. This is a 2015 Terrence Malick film starring Christian Bale. And man, was this movie an experience. I really wouldn't even call it a movie. It's more of just a vibe. It's just a feeling. I honestly could not tell you the premise of this movie, so I will read what it says on IMDb, and I guess it's probably true. So IMDb says, a writer indulging in all that Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and also St. Louis, have to offer, undertakes a search for love and self via a series of adventures with 6 different women. If you're unfamiliar, Terrence Malick likes to do weird shit, and this movie is no exception. The movie comes up with a vibe of it's very, very improvised, and it's just kind of like, F it, let's wing it. And it's clear that like the camera just kind of gets distracted by whatever seems the most interesting at any time. And that was something that was very annoying when I watched The Thin Red Line last year. But here, it kind of works, because this really isn't a movie. It's more just a series of images. Because like there's no real like start or end of a scene, or like even with characters, like all the different women that pop up like Imogen, they're just kind of suddenly there, and then they're eventually some point just not there anymore and they don't come back. And you don't really notice them coming or going. It's kind of almost dreamlike in that sense of you're just kind of weird shit is happening and you just accept it and roll with it. It really surprised me how much I actually enjoyed this movie, especially coming off of The Thin Red Line, which I really hated. This one just clicked for me. Now, that being said, I don't recommend this movie unless like you can really handle like textbook definition art house films, because like you can't get more textbook weird than this shit. I definitely caution you to go into this movie. It's definitely an experience, and if you think you can handle it, I'd say go for it, because it could be a rewarding experience for you. I'm definitely glad that I watched this film. Me and Orson Welles. This is a 2008 film starring Zac Efron, and the basic premise is it's a historical fiction film, so it's inspired by a photo of a real event. Back in the 30s, Orson Welles was doing Julius Caesar, and there's a photo from the production of him sitting next to a 14-year-old boy, and so the writer of this film saw that photo and was like, dude, that 14-year-old boy, that's the story. So this production did happen, but the story that's being told in this film is a work of fiction. And so like people who were actually involved were a little annoyed that it's bullshit, but like I think the story that they told was a good, well-told story. I definitely think Zac Efron gave a solid performance. He was the lead. The guy they got to be Orson Welles was incredible. He looks like Orson Welles. He sounds like Orson Welles. He acts like how I think Orson Welles should act. This big commanding presence. I'm so happy that they went with an unknown rather than just like some big name star wanting to pay homage to the greatest director, actor ever. And instead they got someone who like knows their shit, and he freaking crushed it. Imogen's barely in the movie. I think like 2 scenes. She's basically just supposed to be a pretty woman, and she's a pretty woman, so good job. Claire Danes is also in this, and she's pretty solid. She's doing similar things to other roles of just kind of being like a slightly misunderstood woman who's just kind of off on her own. But even though I have seen her do very similar things, I still enjoyed her performance here. It definitely did feel a bit hero worship-y at times. And I think that brought it down a little bit. Plus I didn't 100% connect to it. It's a quite like, so it's basically a 4 out of 5, but I wasn't able to fully connect to it. I think part of that could be because like I do like Orson Welles. I enjoy a number of his films. I haven't seen all of them, but like I understand why other people put him in such incredibly high regard, and I definitely think he deserves a lot of the praise. I just don't personally have such a huge hero worship of him, so that could partly be why it didn't entirely connect to me and get pushed over into the really liked category. Regardless though, I did enjoy it a lot, and I would still recommend it, especially if like you're a theater person or a classic film person. I think you're gonna get a lot more out of it than just like someone who's only into modern stuff or not in the theater scene. But I think you can still get stuff out of it. So yes, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I'd especially recommend it if you're a nerd. So yes. Frank and Lola. This is a 2016 movie starring Michael Shannon and Justin Long. He's not really in it that much. And obviously Imogen Poots. So the premise of this one is basically Michael Shannon and Imogen Poots are in a relationship, and it's kind of about just the drama of their relationship. And yes, there is a 25-year age difference that they do address in the movie. IMDb described this movie as a psychosexual noir love story. And like, I guess it's a noir, sure. Definitely is a love story. It's more about like abusive relationships and past trauma and how to deal with that stuff, and also obsession and like what you go to, the lengths you go to protect your loved ones and stuff. It also deals with rape and rape allegations, and then it also has to deal with like open relationships a little bit. So yeah, it was interesting. I definitely enjoyed it. For a lot of the movie, it was in the liked category. Then just kind of like really watching Michael Shannon and just like the fierceness of his eyes and just like how they can like cut through anyone's soul, and especially when he like scowls, it's just like, hot damn, he's got so much talent. He is fierce. And then also Justin Long, he's not in a ton of this movie, but like he just perfectly plays the goofy, pretentious prick that like you want to hate him, but he doing like good, nice stuff for you, but he's also a giant douchebag, and it's like, I have so many mixed feelings about you. This is really impressive. Good job, Justin Long. And then obviously this is Imogen Poots' best performance. She has a really great emotional scene near the end that was just really impressive, because it was like she was like crying her eyes out, her face was just completely distraught, but then she was like almost speaking normal, and it's like, Yeah, I get that. I get that. And that's also so impressive. So hard to do, but yeah, that was great. Yeah, so yeah, this is a good one. I don't necessarily recommend it, but yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah. Chatroom. This is a 2010 film that most people are like, this film is trash. Like, it is at 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is impressive. And like, even audience scores are like, this is terrible. And I'm like, it's pretty good. It has flaws, don't get me wrong, but like, it's actually solid. So it's a 2010 film that stars a bunch of young British actors that you would recognize, a number of whom from Game of Thrones. The main actor, though, is Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And the premise is Aaron plays this really sad boy who's maybe very depressed. And maybe he wants to meet some other kids and convince one of them to kill themselves and he can watch. So like, yeah, it's a f***ed up subject, but I think they more or less treat it pretty well. Like, the other characters realize what he's doing and call out how shitty he's being, but he's also a very manipulative person and he has power over these other kids. So like, it makes sense that they're kind of powerless to stop him from doing some of the things that he does. It also has like a physical representation of the chat rooms, and I'm honestly fine with that because it's basically like it's a long hallway and then there's a bunch of different doors and the different doors are the different chat rooms, and you can like password protect the chat rooms, and there's like chairs in there and you can decorate the chat rooms, and I'm like, yeah, okay, those are all things you could more or less do in actual chat rooms. So I'm very fine with how they decided to do that. I think that it works, and I think they did a good job of like separating out like when we're always in the digital world versus the real world. I think what brought this movie down a bit, there are just a couple moments that just don't quite work right. For instance, a really important moment was after the kids have first met, Aaron's character is like convincing them that he's this awesome guy. He basically just gives this speech about how parents are dumb, and they're like, yeah, you're great, you're our leader friend now. And I'm like, no, we needed a bit more than that. That speech was too generic for them to be like, let's do it. But honestly, I enjoyed this film a ton. I think it did emotion really, really well, and the actors did good. So yeah, I enjoyed this film a good solid amount. Would I recommend it? Yeah, just be aware it's about suicide and kids doing really fucked up things. So like, this isn't a movie for everyone, understandably so, and definitely be in like a good right headspace in order to watch it. But I think it's honestly a well done film. So yeah, it is worth a watch if this is the type of vibe that you want and you're in the right headspace for it. So yeah, I would recommend it. Black Christmas. This is a 2019 remake of a remake that stars Imogen Poots, and then it also has Carrie Ellis in it, who, you know, is the best. He's great. This is another movie where I didn't want to go see it when it came out because it got terrible reviews and everyone was hating on this movie for whatever reason. But I really wanted to watch something with Imogen Poots in it. So I was like, all right, let's give this movie a shot. And no, this movie's good. It's solid. It's very not subtle, very heavy-handed, but like, it's good. It's about a group of sorority girls. It's very loosely based off a 1974 movie of the same name. But it's a group of sorority girls who are staying in a sorority house over Christmas break, and some individual is killing them one by one. In the original, they get like creepy phone calls. In this one, they get creepy text messages. And yeah, it's solid. It's all about rape culture in college, and it's also about just toxic masculinity, almost literally at some times. And there's like some magic stuff, which is a little different. But like, it can be like roll your eyes frustrating, like some of the dialogue. But like, that's the exact emotion you're supposed to be feeling. Like, there was one point where Imogen was talking to security guard, and I literally rolled my eyes at something he said, and then I said, oh my god, and then she did the exact same thing that I did. She rolled her eyes and then said, oh my god, and then just kept going at it. But like, yeah, because that's like, people just ignore, you know, women when they're in crisis stuff sometimes, and it's infuriating and insane, but like, this is stuff that legit happens. Like, it specifically makes references to like Brett Kavanaugh and rapist Brock Turner and just stuff like that. This movie definitely got way more hate than it deserved. It's actually good. It's not perfect though. Like, I definitely wish it would have been a bit more subtle with its messaging, just because it kind of bashes you over the head with it. And then also, I wish it would have either been a bit more gory, because like, it definitely had moments where it could have been gory. Like the 2006 one was super gory, and I remember watching that and enjoying it. Or it could have been a bit more like suspenseful, because like, there's definitely some suspense stuff, but like, they could have pushed it more to kind of get the spooks in there a bit. But no, it was great. And Imogen did such a great job acting. She carried this movie and was great, and that's good reason I love her. She definitely needs to win like some Oscars and stuff, because she is so freaking talented. Vivarium. This is going to be kind of the opposite, because I'm going to kind of spoil the hell out of this movie. Maybe, potentially. It depends on how my conversation goes with myself. Anyway, So this movie stars Imogen Poots and then Jesse Eisenberg. But yeah, this is a really slow and kind of difficult to watch sci-fi movie. The premise is basically there's this young couple looking for a house. They go check out this house in this very abstract looking suburbia area and then get stuck there. They literally can't leave. And then suddenly they get a baby in a box and have to take care of it. And yeah, it's really interesting. When I went online to try to find some discussions about it, it really came down to a lot of people really just didn't like this movie. And I would say they didn't like it because the ending really didn't explain stuff, or at least didn't explain stuff in a satisfying way. You really don't get definitive answers or just kind of general answers. But then also I think people didn't necessarily like it because I think they kind of interpreted it at a very surface level. Like they talked about how it's about the horrors of suburbia, or like the horrors of being parents, or horrors of being parents when you don't want to be parents. And I don't think those are wrong interpretations of the movie. I think that's just a very top level look at the movie. And I think there's a lot more going on to it. Some people kind of talk about it as it's an alien invasion movie, because there's definitely aliens in this movie. But I think it's more to it than just that. Because looking at the name of the movie, it really explains a lot. Vivarium is a real word. It means a place such as a laboratory where animals or plants are kept under conditions simulating their natural environment as for research. So it's a very weird looking suburbia place because it's trying to emulate their natural habitat so they can conduct research. And some people took that as research so they can invade. But the movie opens up with a little montage of a cuckoo bird. If you don't know what cuckoo birds do, is they find a nest, they push out the eggs that are in there, and then put their own eggs in there so this other bird will raise their eggs for them. I mean, they open with the movies, that's a big part of what it's about. So the reason I say I don't think it's an invasion movie is because I think there's actually two different types of aliens. I think they're using one kind of a smaller type of alien to do the cuckoo bird thing, but then they're using that as a way to then study these people for research purposes. And it's just think of it as an actual person studying animals in a lab situation. It's a human looking at mice. The human is doing stuff to the mice, yes, but the point of the human is not to then take over the mouse world. It's to just do research to better understand them for, whatever purposes. It's to help with medicine, or just to learn more about mice, or, something. Who knows exactly what? They might kind of hint at it. I don't know. There's definitely some stuff with colors that I was hoping people would be talking about, but no one said anything because there's just a lot of hate towards this movie. Another reason why I think there's a lot of hate towards this movie, I know I'm talking a lot about this movie, is because it's definitely slow in the middle section. I think the beginning is kind of the best part. There's a lot of the characters are most alive, but it dives into the slow descent into madness, and it's really slow and really maddening, and the baby turns into a very, very annoying child that you're just you are so frustrating. I wish I could just pick you up and do something to make you not so infuriating. I don't know what, but it needs to not be violent because violence is bad. It's infuriating that you can't do anything and they can't do anything to fix it. And so that's just people are kind of misdirecting their frustrations. The movie is trying to make you feel these things. So the movie's doing its job since you're feeling these things, but people feel that since they're feeling these things, the movie's not doing a bad job because I'm feeling these negative emotions. But that's what it wants you to do. It wants you to feel these things. And I think it's great. I did quite enjoy this movie. Other people just kind of thought it could have been shortened, it's one of those sci-fi concepts that could have been done in half the time. And it could be. That maybe could have helped it, but I just love Imogen Poots so much, and she is the lead of this movie, and I'm just I can't get enough of her. So I'm fine with it being long, because 28 weeks later. This is a movie I have seen before, and actually I own it. This is a 2007 film, and it is a sequel to 28 Days Later, a much superior film, but though this one is actually pretty decent. So the reason I wanted to rewatch this one is because I discovered that Imogen Poots is actually in this. If you're unfamiliar, I have a mega crush on her, and it blew my mind when I discovered I actually own a movie that she's in. Now, I didn't rewatch the first one because it's a movie that I really love, and I try to not rewatch old movies that I haven't seen recently that I know I really love. The premise is it's a zombie movie, fast zombies. The title refers to the fact that it has been 28 weeks since the initial zombie outbreak. So they're kind of in recovery mode, but then of course everything goes to hell. I thought the movie was good, it was enjoyable. The kills were good, the gore was good, the story was fine. You don't really go to a zombie movie for story, but that is where I kind of dock its points because there's so much just like convenient stuff and everything's like super interconnected, and like there's one zombie that's just like chasing the main characters around for the entire movie, and I'm like, come on, we don't need one zombie. It's a zombie apocalypse, we could have the horde go after them, or even just like the logic of how the hell that first zombie got out of the containment. But again, you don't watch zombie movies for the plot. But yeah, it was nice seeing Imogen. It was cool seeing her so young, making me think back to when I was her age. She was 17 when she filmed this, and I would have been 17 when I watched it, so we would have been the same age. That's a helicopter flying by. The best thing about this movie is its opening scene. It's one of the best opening scenes to a movie I've ever seen because it is just utterly terrifying. Ugh. Now, I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend this one. I would definitely recommend the first one, and if you just want some more zombie goodness, then you can check out this one. So yeah, it was enjoyable. A Late Quartet. This is a 2012 movie featuring Imogen Poots. It doesn't star her though. It stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, Christopher Walken, and then two other actors that I can't remember their names. The basic premises, those actors I just mentioned minus Imogen, are all part of a string quartet who have been together for roughly 25 years. Suddenly some stuff has kind of sprung up and it puts some pressure on the relationship of the quartet, so maybe things might be breaking apart, or maybe they're gonna be better than ever. And yeah, it was a pretty good movie. I definitely enjoyed the story overall. I thought it was very, very well acted. I especially loved Philip Seymour Hoffman, mostly because I feel like I've seen him play like big, strong, tough guys. Like he just has such a commanding presence. But in this movie, he's kind of more of a loser and pathetic at times. It was refreshing to see him like that. Imogen is great as always, though she's kind of just here for her sex appeal, but she still gave a great performance. The one time when she was kind of doing something a little more emotional, her original accent broke through and I was like, oh, I saw that. I saw that, but it was really quick. But yeah, I enjoyed it a good amount. I don't really have any complaints about it. I just didn't emotionally connect with it enough to put it in the really liked category, but it's still a pretty dang good movie. If it looks interesting, go for it. I would say if you're more of a musically inclined person, you might connect to it a little bit more, but it's kind of open for everyone. The Look of Love. This is a 2013 film about the life of Paul Raymond, the controversial entrepreneur who became Britain's richest man. It stars Steve Coogan and also features Anna Farrell. And it's surprisingly really good. It was just an interesting story told really well. There was a lot of nudity, almost an absurd amount, but it technically made sense for the story because like the dude sleeps with a lot of his employees and he also works, amongst other things, at strip clubs. Well, it's fancier strip clubs. So like, it makes sense to just be lots of topless women doing things at times. It is ridiculous, especially in the beginning, because it was like, well, in the very beginning is almost like every other shot. There were some boobs, but then eventually slowed down to just like every other scene, and eventually slowed down to less. But that's not the reason why I really liked it. I just thought it was a well-acted, well-told story, and it was an interesting story and engaging. Imogen gave a really, really good performance. She kind of doesn't come in until later, but once she's there, she really commands the screen. She's such a talented actor. But don't get me wrong, Steve does a great job too, and so does Anna. I particularly liked her in this. I'm a big fan of her from Pushing Daisies, so I always love whenever I come across one of her films. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I would definitely recommend it. Unless you prefer to not see naked women, then you should definitely not watch this movie, because it's a lot. Like, you can't really watch this movie without witnessing a bunch of women be naked. So yeah, it's really good. Just a lot of female nudity. Miss Austen regrets. This is a 2007 film, and it is about the life of Jane Austen, the latter half of her life. It takes place after the first 3 books have been published, but before her 4th one was. And I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It's really good. It's really fun. It's really charming. I really love the lead a lot. She did such a great job of capturing that Jane Austen spirit, that fire that you see in so many of her characters. And like, I don't know how accurate the portrayal is, but she feels exactly what I think Jane Austen would act like. So in that sense, she crushed it. And they did a really good job of having lots of just charm in general, lots of really fun flirtatious things. I in particular also really love like the relationship between Jane Austen and Imogen Poots' character. She plays her niece who's like looking for help with boys, and who else to better help her than this author who writes all these amazing love stories. And Imogen does a great job of being like a fun, plucky kid, but also like she does have to give a couple of emotional scenes, and she does a good job there. This is one of her first acting roles, and she's clearly shows skill early on. So yeah, the story was definitely entertaining without a doubt, but I definitely feel like I walked away learning a lot of things that I'm now glad that I know. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about Jane Austen. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie and would totally recommend it, especially if you're a Jane Austen fan, like without a doubt watch it. But even if you're not, it's just a good solid movie. Like it tells an interesting story well, goes to some interesting places. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it and would totally recommend it. Jimi, Always by My Side. This is a 2014 film starring Andre 3000, and the basic premise is it's about Jimi Hendrix over the course of, I think, like 3-ish years. Basically him going from just like in a small nothing band to the formation of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And it's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Andre gives a great performance as Jimi. I really loved how like they didn't sugarcoat him. He was an asshole. He was a dick at times, maybe even a little bit abusive, even though that's a bit controversial. But then he was also really charming, and you could really feel like the talent flowing off of him, and just like people reacting to his talent in such different ways, but like you could really connect to it. They also tried lots of like more experimental things, which I thoroughly enjoyed, especially like things with sound. Like there's just moments where like the sound and the picture aren't exactly lined up. Maybe like we're seeing later in the conversation, but we're still hearing this other part from earlier, or kind of just like the more emotional response of what's going on, and I think that was done really, really well. There's other moments where there's just a lot of quiet in this movie, which I think works really, really well, because in a movie that's all about music and jams, you need those moments of silence to really elevate when we do finally get to hear the music. Imogen's not in this movie a ton, but when she's there, she's definitely a commanding presence, and I definitely liked what they did with her character. Could I have used a little bit more? Yes, but I'm biased. She's one of my all-time favorite actors, so I am fine with what we got. I will say though that they weren't able to actually get any Jimi Hendrix official music. So all of the music that's in the film are covers and other people's music. So if you are a big Jimi Hendrix fan, that's the only thing I would really caution. Just don't expect any of his music because they didn't get the rights, because the people who own his rights wanted a lot of control and they were gonna, you know, tone down the story. But this feels like a very genuine telling of it. Like he definitely was without a doubt an incredibly talented person, but he was also a real and flawed person. It's better to get that whole picture and not have the music rather than have the music and have a tamed down bullshit version. Looking at you, Bohemian Rhapsody. So yeah, despite the music issue, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's definitely without a doubt a very good experience. Roses War, or if you live anywhere else in the world, Baltimore. This stars Imogen Poots, one of my all-time favorite actors, and the basic premise is this is inspired by a true story from the 1970s, in which this rich British girl and 3 Irishmen steal an insane amount of incredibly valuable art in an attempt to get some members of the IRA free. And it's really, really good. It's so good. It has a lot going on because it does a lot of parallel storytelling where like we have one story going on of the robbery slash heist happening happening. And then while that's happening, we also have the story of the aftermath of that, like them at like a safe house and kind of figuring out the next steps. And then we also get like snippets of Rose's life and what brought her to this moment and why she's doing this and all of that stuff. And it's not told chronologically, but it was still really easy to follow and understand. So that was just like really masterfully done, that wasn't confusing. But on top of that, like the story itself is really, really good. It's one of those movies that for me, it really is like gives you energy of just like, yeah, the system type of thing, rooting for the underdog. But it also just, you really get into the insight of her character, and she does come from this affluent background, but like she doesn't like that, or her parents. And even though it does focus on Rose and what her life is, all of the other characters, you get a good sense of who they are as people. They don't feel like these one-dimensional beings. Even the hostages, I feel like I got a good idea of who they are and what they were all about. So yeah, it was a really, really well done film. Imogen, like always, gave a great performance. It was a really interesting story. I liked where it went, the emotions it got to. It all around just really worked for me. So yeah, I without a doubt recommend it. It's a good, interesting film that tells an intriguing story. Totally worth a watch. Fright Fest. This is a 2011 movie. It's a remake of a 1985 movie. I think that's the right year. It obviously stars Imogen Poots, but it also has a great cast. It's got Anton Yelchin, Toni Collette, Colin Farrell, Mick Lovin, and then also Dave Franco. So it's just like, it's a really good cast. It also has David Tennant, who's pretty great. Basic premise is it's a neighbor next door is secretly a vampire type of thing, and then hijinks ensue. It's kind of more of a thriller-ish movie. It's not really too spooky or anything. And I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of blown away by how much I enjoyed this movie. My only real complaint about this movie is just I wasn't a huge fan of the design of the vampires, because like most of the time they do just look like humans, which is fine, but then they kind of get very monstery, and just the way they did the monster thing, I don't know, I wasn't a fan of it. That's such like a minor complaint. The movie is just so much fun. And everyone does great. All the supporting characters are really memorable, so that like when stuff happens to them later, you're like, ah, no, not that person. I had a small connection with that person. This movie reminded me a bit of 30 Days of Night, and that was a complaint I had with 30 Days of Night, is that I didn't really care about any of these side characters as they get picked off. But in this movie, I did. I cared about all of them. Continuing with the comparisons to 30 Days of Night, I wasn't a huge fan of how that movie ended. I still really liked that movie, but the ending kind of I wasn't really sold on. But it's the reverse here almost, because like I was enjoying this movie quite a bit, but then like we got to that ending and I'm like, that was a good ending. And it was the ending that pushed it up into the really liked category. It was on the edge before there, but they nailed the ending, so I was like, yep, no, this is a really liked. This is definitely a really liked. So yeah, this movie was great. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're in the mood for like vampire stuff. Again, it's not really spooky. It's more just like kind of violent and just good fun time. So yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. V for Vendetta. This is a 2005 film based off of an Alan Moore comic. The basic premise is, in this fascist dystopian England, there's this young woman named Evie, played by Natalie Portman, super adorable, and she one day gets harassed by the police, and this masked figure saves her in a very ridiculous scene. Then she gets linked to him, and then that causes a lot of issues. But V wants to do some revolution, because he's like, fascism. Where this differs from the comic is that in the comic he is pro-anarchy, and here he's pro-democracy. Or at least he's not explicitly for just chaos. He just hates fascism is the main thing. And yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It works really, really well. That first action scene that I talked about where V rescues Evie is the most ridiculous one. Like, what's going on there? Is he like a superhero or something? It's crazy. And also, Natalie Portman cannot do a British accent. It's so bad. Like, I love you, Natalie, but like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing? Thankfully, after the beginning of the film, she doesn't speak as much, plus she gets better as it goes on, and just, it's less of an issue. Yeah, no, the story is really good. It really energizes you. I mean, yes, this is a very over-the-top world, and it definitely beats you over the head with its messaging and what it's going for, and its symbolism and all that stuff, and it's such an absurd version of reality. But at the same time, that works because, like, reality is just getting more and more absurd. Like, what is going on in this country? So like, I think that still works because reality is somehow more ridiculous. There is a second fight scene that's also a bit ridiculous and it's very of its time, but like by the point we got to that one, the movie had me. Like, it really, really nails its emotions so well. Imogen Poots has a little part in this movie and she is just delightful in it. I remember loving that scene when I saw it in theaters. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie and would again totally recommend it. I mean, it does have a couple of issues, but I think it's worthwhile to push through them because the rest of the movie is just fantastic. The Father. This movie was one of the 8 nominated for Best Picture this year, and it stars Anthony Hopkins, Olivia Colman, and the whole reason why I wanted to watch it before it got nominated for Best Picture is it also features Imogen Poots. The basic premise is it's about an old man who is losing his memory/mind. And much akin to Memento, they put you in his perspective. So it's kind of like a mystery, just trying to figure out what's going on. And it's also very, very disorienting. This movie's definitely a drama, but I would almost call it like a horror movie. Just like, it gets really intense at parts and it's just so unsettling. Like, you know, not knowing what's going on, being so lost and confused and wanting to help this guy, but not being able to help him. And it's just like, ah, and it, you know, just has horror movie vibes like that. The movie definitely deserved the nomination for Best Picture easily. It's fantastic. And Anthony Hopkins won Best Actor. I know he thought Chadwick Boseman was gonna win. I haven't seen the movie that he was nominated for, but like, Anthony Hopkins shouldn't be ashamed for winning an award for this movie. Like, he did incredible here. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's great, it's good. You're gonna be sad, but it's worth the watch. Popstar, Never Stop and Never Stopping. I was aware of this movie when it came out, but I was just like, I don't really like music-related movie things, not that much. So I just kind of like dismissed it out of hand. But Reddit really loves it. And also, I knew it had Imogen Poots in it. So I was like, all right, well, we can go for it. I do like some Lonely Island stuff. And yeah, it was great. I love this movie. It was co-written, co-directed, and co-starring Lonely Island. The premise is it follows all 3 of them. They were essentially like a Beastie Boy group back in the day. But then Andy Samberg's character gets all big and famous and decides to go at it solo. But that may or may not have been a big mistake. So it's basically like a mockumentary type of thing, and it is so dang funny. Like, I was laughing the entire way through. It was great. Obviously, the songs in it are amazing, and I need to like listen to this soundtrack more because it is just so good. And just like, it's just, the movie just works. And like, you're not surprised by anything with a plot, but this isn't the type of movie where you need to care about the plot. Like, you're not here for a revolutionary story, you're here for a lot of laughs. And this movie delivers a lot of laughs. I will say, though, that I don't think this movie is going to be, how do you say it? It's going to age. Not age poorly, it's just going to be very a time capsule of the mid-teens. Because though there are some timeless elements of the movie, there's a lot of references to stuff that happened recently that are going to be lost very, very quickly. Because I just like barely remembered some of the stuff that they were referring to. Though I still did, and I thought they were hilarious. So yeah, I without a doubt recommend this movie. If you want a good fun time, go for this movie. It's a delight. Green Room. This movie was freaking incredible. I remember hearing promotional stuff for it. Like, I remember the first image being released because it has Sir Patrick Stewart as a skinhead, and I'm like, oh, I love Sir Patrick Stewart, but I don't know how I feel about him being a skinhead. And then I just never watched it because it wasn't, available and stuff. And then I finally watched it the other day, and I was like, man, this is incredible. I should have watched it way sooner. So basically, the premise, it's a thriller. It's a really good thriller. There's this band, and they come across some skinheads, and shenanigans happen, and it's really intense, and it's really gory. And I was like, I saw, oh, extreme gore. All right, that's interesting. And then it happened, and I was like, oh my God, that was extreme. But it was so good. It stars the guy who plays Chekhov in the Star Trek reboots. I can't say his name. It's Anton something. And Imogen Poots, who I freaking love. Her hair in this is great. I love it. Also, I'm not huge into metal or anything, but these guys are a metal band. I enjoyed it. It was like screamo metal stuff. There isn't a ton of it, but like, it was good. It's solid. I definitely recommend this movie. You should watch it, but it is like, it's a hard R. Be prepared for stuff. It was good though. So good. Oh yeah. Age Out. This is a 2019 movie starring Ty Sheridan, Imogen Poots, Caleb Landry Jones, and Jeffrey Wright. So the basic premise of this is it's really about the failings of our foster care system. So there is a boy who just turned 18 and is now aged out of the foster care system, and so now he's an official adult, so now he needs to decide what the hell he's going to do next in his life. Is he going to go to college and get a lot of debt, or is he going to join the workforce right away? And obviously, as you can imagine, as an 18-year-old with zero support system, things don't go great for him. Personally, with me thinking about when I was 18, like, I didn't want to have a job. I went to college and stuff and I had a blast there, but like, if I was forced to work and if I didn't have my parents in my life or my friends as well, I would have been like just as screwed as this kid is. So the movie is really just it's about compassion, and it's about finding like non-romantic love. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully shot. Like, it's shot in a very non-Hollywood style. It's a lot of long takes, but you kind of don't really notice it because the camera's kind of moving around a lot. Kind of like almost guerrilla style-ish, but not like mockumentary style. And it's really great. I was blown away by how much I connected to it, especially the ending. I'm not going to say what happens at the end, but like, I cried a lot. And like, even thinking back about it now, like 12 hours later after I watched it, like, I'm still like kind of on the brink of tears about the ending. And like, if you would have told me I was going to cry at the end while watching the movie, I wouldn't have believed you. Or even just like on a different day, I don't know if I would have cried at the ending to this movie, because like, it's not some insane you don't expect to happen or anything, or really connected to me personally. I think it's just, I don't know, because like I said, it's about compassion, and like, I think it just like struck a chord just perfectly. But yeah, I definitely recommend the hell out of this movie. Kind of remind me a little bit of Short Term 12, which I definitely recommend that movie as well. I think that's probably one of the most important movies, especially if you get to work with children or get to be around children. You definitely should watch Short Term 12. And this is in the same vein as that movie. So yeah, it's wonderful. I don't know if you guys will cry at it as well, but it got me. It's good. It's damn good. The Art of Self-Defense. So this is a 2019 movie starring Jesse Eisenberg, Alessandro Davold, and Imogen Poots again. I love her. Really, my only complaint about this movie is that it didn't have more of her in it, because I freaking loved this movie. It was fantastic. So the basic premise is a classic story of like shy, nerd, quiet kid gets beat up and then decides to use martial arts or just like sports in general to kind of like channel his energy, grow as a person, become a better person. But the story is just, it's so incredible. It's so offbeat and weird and strange and ridiculous, and everyone's insane, and I love it so freaking much. Like, everyone just speaks in a deadpan voice, like completely monotone. It's great, except for the answering machine, who has so much sass, and it's probably my favorite part of the movie, even though it's like a really small part. There's also a little dachshund who's super adorable. And really, this movie is all about toxic masculinity and just like the ridiculousness of it and just the absurdity of the whole thing. And also, so like reading discussion threads about this, people who are in like the karate martial arts world, especially like instructors, crazy love this movie, because like, yeah, it's really ridiculous, but actually it's pretty damn true to life, like just the absurd things that people actually do in that world. And so yeah, it's just incredible and I love it. I highly recommend it, but definitely be warned, it's super strange and weird, but I so loved it so much. It's just, it's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing. So now that you've seen the whole list, obviously, you know, I really love the top 5 and would wholeheartedly recommend all of those. And really 1, 2, and 3 are so close together. If you're like, okay, I've seen like her top ones or bigger popular ones, what are more like the deep cut ones that I would recommend? It would probably be like numbers 9, 10, and 11. So Jimi, All Is By My Side, Miss Austen Regrets, and The Look of Love. They're all really fun and interesting movies that definitely did not get the big attention as everything else, but there's something really unique and special about all 3 of them. Going a little further down, honestly, Chatroom. Chatroom was such an unexpected beast of a film. Yeah, it's weird and strange and cringy, but like, it works, and it's definitely one that people are not talking about. So yeah. Also, Me and Orson Welles. That one was something. I enjoyed that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite Imogen Poots films are. She's such an incredibly talented actor. I'm so excited for all of the whole rest of her life and all of the crazy and interesting weird films she's going to make throughout the rest of her hopefully very long career. I can't wait for whichever film releases next.